Welcome to the Renegade Health Boss podcast, where we push the boundaries of what's possible in health and wellness. I'm your host, Heather Gray, a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner. And each week we dive deep into the world of physical, mental, spiritual health, biohacking, relationships. But we're not just talking about the basics. I'm bringing you conversations with the true renegades, experts who are challenging the status quo in their fields, breaking barriers, and uncovering the real truth behind what it takes to live an incredible, joy-filled, and optimized life. If you're ready to step out of the ordinary and step into a life of extraordinary health and happiness, you're in the right place. Let's get started on this journey to becoming your own Renegade Health Boss. Yay! Welcome, Dr. Porter, to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So I very first saw you is probably 4 years ago when I was working for Dr. Amy Apigian as her course manager. And I just absolutely fell in love with you and everything that you're doing with this work, everything around the brain and trauma. Like it's such needed work out in the world. I would love for my, viewers, listeners to find out, fall in love with you as well. Like, who are you, Dr. Porter? Why are you talking about trauma and brain? And how did you get started in this?
Well, I'm very fortunate that my dad was an alcoholic. That's how I got into it, really. My dad was a chronic alcoholic. So luckily for us, our family, 9 kids, he went and got help with something called the Silva Method, which was a meditation process. And he realized that, which I still believe today, is that we have a physiological problem, not a mental health problem in the world today. People are sitting too much. The brain needs to learn and breathe. And the Silva Method taught something where you'd go to level, they called it, where you'd go to alpha. And they started using, it was a brainwave entrainment, which we now call isochronic tones, but this was back in the 70s. So we didn't have the same terminology that we do today. And that started me, because my background, I've always been kind of a geeky kind of person, and I love technology. And back then there was no computer screens like we see today or anything like that. So when people ask me if I went to school for neurophysiology, I always tell them there was no neuro anything when I went to school. We had what was called biofeedback. So we would look at people's breathing, their heart rate, their warmth of their hands, different things like that. And that would tell us basically if they were in a state called alpha, which we know in a state of alpha, you're out of pain. So that kind of took me on a journey where I went to work for a company called Light and Sound Research, and we created the first portable light and sound machine. And since 1986, I've been doing it ever since. I've just happened to be the last man standing. There were 6 of us. So I've done a lot in between there that I don't think the listeners need to know, but they can read about it in my first book called Awaken the Genius if they want, because I tell the whole story in there about everything that came along the way. And I started out in 2nd grade. I jokingly say that Sister Barbara liked me so much she had me in her class 2 years in a row. But I got held back in 2nd grade, mostly because I refused to do work, because I was an artist and I just didn't see the value of school. And then when my dad taught me how to go to level, which is what they call Silva, I realized that school was just a game, and all you had to do is learn the answers to test. And so I became an honor roll student, and the rest is history. It's all just a game anyway. I believe that if you learn how to play it, you don't get so stressed out, and you don't have the worry and the anxiety, which I was one of those kids that, if my mother was so prone, I would have been on some pharmaceutical, but my mother got us on. She actually took us off all sugars, all dyes, everything. And all of us kids went from being the spazzes of the earth to honor roll students. And it really was the one thing was nutrition, number one. That's why I always say the first thing in brain health is nutrition, because you can't outthink a bad diet. And then they got us into sports. So I believe the number 2 step in really increasing brain function is movement and breath. Like yoga, Tai Chi, but even if you just get out there and walk, some way, get your blood moving. Most people don't realize if you sit down for 20 minutes, they now say it's equivalent to smoking a cigarette. So when they say sitting is the new smoking, they've actually correlated it to the damage that cigarettes do. And it's the smoke in the cigarette, obviously, that's doing the damage, not the nicotine, because there's a lot of research now that shows nicotine is really good for brain function. So a lot of people gave nicotine the bad name, but it's the 30,000 different neurochemicals that light up in that cigarette when you smoke it that causes the damage. So, and then in 2003 is when I invented BrainTap, which is my 16th device. I decided to stop renaming it because people weren't getting that it was the same piece of equipment, just coming out in a new iteration. So now we're on the 6th generation of BrainTap, and I'm not going to change the name because we've got a lot of momentum out there in the world. And so I keep it as the same name now.
That's absolutely incredible. Well, you are quite the pioneer. I had no idea. And so were your parents, like way before their time, doing stuff like the Silva Method and getting you off of artificial stuff. Like, God bless your parents.
Yeah, there was a commercial about grape nuts. I don't know if you remember it, by
I
Ewell
do.
Gibbons. And when I graduated, the big joke was I was going to replace Ewell Gibbons in the grape nuts commercials. That was the, and we still eat that way. My son, who's now 40, it's funny because he tells his kids, "At least I let you have sugar." There was no sugar in our house. I said, "Well, you shouldn't let him have sugar either." But that's the way. He took it, unfortunately, like a punishment instead of a blessing.
Yeah. My kid did the same thing, which totally broke my heart. And that was his way of rebelling, was going against every nutritious thing I taught him. I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? I'm like, no.
It's funny how that happens. People say that happens in almost everything. Like if you're a Republican, they're going to be a Democrat. If you're a Democrat, they're going to be a Republican, because we go through that rebel age as we're growing up. And luckily for me, my dad knew how to convince me it was sports. And he's told me, "Hey, if you get your stuff together and we work on your mind and work on your body, you're going to be good at sports." And I turned it out getting a track scholarship and being a 3-sport captain in high school and, all those kind of things. But he knew how to motivate me, where I thought I was motivating Alex, and Cherie's really good about it. My daughter, she's a massage therapist, so she's in the health field. My son's more of a geek like I was, and he's in the IT field. So he's not in the same, he doesn't get to hear all the positive news about health like everybody else has.
What was your first machine called?
It was called the MC Square.
The MC Square.
And we called it the Dream Machine. And some people have shown pictures to me on the internet still that it basically, I don't know if you remember a place called Radio Shack.
Oh, yeah.
But, we used to buy all the parts at Radio Shack and build it in the back office.
Oh, that's awesome.
We were kind of constrained to however many we could build in the back office. Most people don't realize back in 1985, there was no programmable microchip. And the first one that we put into the MC Square looked like a little 6-inch ruler, really. That's how big it was. And it only did 10 instruction sets. So now, in our phone, we have millions of these microprocessors that do millions of different activities. I mean, they say that our phones have as much technology as the space shuttle, did when it went off. So, I mean, we're walking around with this advanced technology, and most people just use it to check their text messages. So.
What a badass you are. And then watching you at Dave Asprey's conference, get out there and take the whole 3,000 people crowd, through the Silva Method. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm home. Thank you.
Oh yeah, man. When we grew up, every other weekend, we were somewhere in Lower Michigan doing a seminar, because my dad actually became one of the first Silva instructors.
Oh,
once he got help. My dad was one of these guys that when he drank, he was really good at that too. He could get drunk in the most, I mean, imagine having 9 kids at home and you go get drunk and you stay gone for 3 days. I can't believe my mother, that would never happen in this day and age. I mean, people would have been putting him in jail or something, but once he got help, he realized that he couldn't relax, that your physiology is it promotes either healthy thinking or poor thinking. And when you don't have a way to get out of that stress, that's why, unfortunately, suicides are so bad right now. People don't realize that they can unlock their nervous system and feel joy and feel happiness and really hack their health by movement and breathing techniques and eating properly. They don't realize that sugar they just had for breakfast. Like I remember seeing a client and she goes, "I eat really healthy. I have a banana, a bagel, and a cup of coffee for breakfast." And I said, "Well, you just ate about 40 grams of sugar, and now your body is chasing that sugar high, just like somebody who had a shot of alcohol in the morning." And they don't realize that what they're doing to themselves, because our society, we turn on the TV and we think the cereals that they have out there are healthy for you.
I say that all the time. They say, this is a part of a balanced breakfast. And I say, bullshit. That's diabetes in the making.
Yes. There's actually, when I give my talks for a group called Club Reduce back about 10 years ago, we had a research project that we told them, and it was what they did was they took rats. They fed one group of rats the cereal, one group of rats the box. Guess which one lived longer?
Oh my gosh, the box.
The rats that ate the box actually lived longer than the ones that ate the cereal. That's how bad it is for you. And people go, "How do we live?" I go, we as humans have a will to live. We can upregulate, downregulate. We can get by with a lot of things because our body is designed to survive. So we can keep robbing Peter to pay Paul until there's no more Peter.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, and that's why I love your work, is because, I mean, with my history of mental illness to, stints in the psych ward for suicide attempts, 27 years of Lyme disease, addicts, all in my family, horrendous, issues. There were so many things that I wanted to specialize in, but like really when I think about it, and I think that's why I love the brain stuff so much, is because at the root of this, a lot of this is brain health and gut health, so if you're kind of covering those two things and getting your nervous system regulated, right? Like there's so many things that you can kind of cover with that. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to dive deeper into trauma, Lyme, how it affects the brain, how your BrainTap works, and dive deeper into the fun nitty gritty. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Imagine having an extra hour in your day. With Carol Bike, it's possible in just 5 minutes. You experience what hours of traditional cardio can't match, thanks to scientifically engineered, AI personalized workouts. It's not about working out longer. It's about working out smarter. Every session is tailored to your fitness level, making it perfect for anyone, regardless of age or ability. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to precision with workouts that are scientifically proven to boost your health and fitness in 90% less time than regular cardio. Who doesn't want that? Less time working out and still get the amazing benefits? Yes, please. Scientifically proven to reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes by 62%, lower blood pressure by 5% with just 3 short workouts a week. Feel the benefits of Carol Bike for yourself, risk-free for 100 days. And if it's not for you, return it and get a full refund. Carol Bike is more than a time saver. It's a life enhancer. Make sure to go to carolbike.com, that's CAROL bike.com, and use coupon code RHB to receive $100 off. Make sure to take the next step in your healing journey with your Carol Bike.
When you're facing painful symptoms, a diagnosis of chronic Lyme, or an autoimmune disease, it can be overwhelming to navigate. You already know mainstream medicine doesn't have the tools to support you, and often even alternative medicine can become a maze of options without sustained results. Modern living puts significant stress on our systems. To counter this, we need a holistic approach, utilizing the latest technology and guided by physicians with decades of clinical experience. This is biological medicine. The Biomed Center in Scottsdale, Arizona is one of the most comprehensive clinics in the world, incorporating the latest diagnostics available, such as full-body MRIs, computer regulation thermography, heart rate variability, toxin screenings, and along with hormone and gut testing, they achieve the broadest look at all systems of the body. Customized protocols are developed by physicians who have treated thousands of patients in chronic disease by optimizing their biological performance. Save yourself years of suffering and searching with a visit to the Biomed Center, Scottsdale. The future of medicine is here.
Yay, welcome back. So super excited to get into the nuts and bolts of this. This is, like I said, one of my favorite topics. So what are some of the primary effects of trauma on the brain structure and function?
I think you just kind of said it when you said what happened to you when you're under the stress of Lyme, and that it actually affects something called the amygdala. And this hijacks your emotions. You don't think right. So think about your primitive brain, and it doesn't know what to do. And that primitive brain acts like at its best, it will act like a 4th grader. So when you think about what kind of actions, would you really turn over your checkbook in your life to a 4th grader? No. It also affects your hippocampus. Now, the reason this is important is your hippocampus is responsible for bringing you recall of memory, skills, and resources. So when you're when you don't have any resources, and when it also affects one of the most important things that differentiates us from other animals, our prefrontal cortex. This is the part of our brain that has reasoning powers, executive function. So imagine you get hit with a triple whammy with Lyme disease because the body is under attack. When the body's under attack, it puts the whole system into fight or flight, which is, we call it neurological lock. And when you're in neurological lock, the answers could be there. A lot of times you'll hear that the internet's down, right? Somebody will tell you the internet's down. No, their connection to the internet is down. The internet is still up, right? That's what happens when you get hijacked. All that resource is there, and you know it's there, so the frustration increases, but you can't get access to it.
I used to explain it to people. It was like I would walk into a room in my brain where I knew the answer was, and I would hit a wall. And I would try to turn to a different direction where I knew an answer was, and I'd hit a wall. And I'd hit a wall. So it was like I was conscious that I knew that the stuff was there before, but I couldn't access it. It was horrible.
That's why in the military and in sports, and we don't get trained this in life, but we should, is we have to train under stress. If we don't train under stress, our brain doesn't have the capacity. And a lot of people say they don't want any stress. I always say there's only one time in your life you don't have any stress.
When you're dead.
Yeah, so when you're dead. So think of stress. If we can train our brain to anticipate, there was a great study done during COVID, which I love to tell people about on these. It was done where everyone who's listening, including you and I, we're emitting 810 nanometer light, or between 810 and 850 nanometer light, which means we're infrared light generators, right? And this light is actually instructing our cells every 40 seconds to change, either upregulate or downregulate. And this pulsing light that happens from the mitochondria of our body, they did a study during COVID. They took people that looked at COVID as a threat versus people that looked at COVID as a challenge. What they found was the people that looked at it as a threat, they were emitting 200 times less light. So that means, imagine if I wanted to send a signal from my office to you in Colorado, and I have 200 times, and I need 200 times power to get the right message there. But now I'm 200 times less. I could be in this room talking away, but you're never going to get the message. So you're never going to get the instruction set. That's what's happening with people's cells, especially when they look at, and when you're sick, when you have an illness, your body just goes into what we call the default mode network. And that's the amygdala that takes over, and emotions drive the behaviors. Well, they drive them anyway, but they drive them typically in a survivor mode rather than an expansion mode. You know, when you think about biohackers, when you're there, Dave Asprey, you're looking around the room, those are people that have expanded consciousness. They're not just thinking about surviving anymore. They're measuring their sleep, they're watching their foods, they're measuring everything, they're doing, you know, they've taken it to the next level. But there are people that blew my mind. I went to a medical conference in California. The best brain we scanned was 30% of their capacity. The best brain, a doctor's brain, and general practitioners, they are the worst. And I've done it over and over again. They don't do anything for their own health because we have a sick care regime, not a healthcare regime. And people think it's healthcare. They go, do you have healthcare coverage? No, they don't, because they don't pay for anything that's healthy. They only pay if you break a leg, which is great. I mean, we have great medical coverage. We have great sick care, but we don't have great health care. We got to take that on ourselves and work on our own self and get our own health up.
Can I get an amen?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Mic drop. So beautiful. So going back to the trauma piece. So where does the trauma piece lie in some of these brain issues that we're seeing?
Well, what happens is the brain gets a pattern. So it could start with a trauma, and that trauma could come in the form of thought, trauma, or a toxin. You know, there could be an assault to the brain. And then the brain starts to wire around that trauma as if it's real. It's only a moment in time, and that's why people can sometimes even have phantom pain, because pain only happens in the brain. Most people don't realize that. You have no pain in the body. What you have in the body is a signal telling your brain that your finger just got cut. And so it sends the pain signal, so you do something about it. You know, if it wasn't a pain, if it was a pleasure signal, you'd cut yourself all day, you know, you wouldn't want to do that, you know. So, and there are people that actually flip that switch, right? They do cut themselves all day. And I'm nothing against them. It's just, that's the way that the brain programs. So what we need to do is, in that heightened state of fight or flight, think in terms of you're very impressionable at that time, because we remember things that you remember in your life. You remember the very good times and you remember the very bad times. And then depending upon your presupposition of life, you forget all the bad times and you just kind of focus on the good times, and you're a good time, you know, you look through life with rose-colored glasses, which I've been accused of. I'm too damn positive. And I said, I would rather be disappointed every once in a while than wake up every morning disappointed. You know, some people wake up every morning and they're disappointed. Today's a terrible day. They don't know what's going to happen. And Yeah, Eeyore. So part of what happens, though, is these emotions are regulated by our stress. So think in terms, as children, we all walked in the room at some point or another. Somebody's having an argument. Could be mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, brother or sister, and we could actually feel that energy. Now, to the extent that we wanted to feel that energy, we opened up and we became more emotional. But some of us actually formed a cushion around us, if you will, or a buffer, so we don't even know we have emotions anymore. And that's even worse because we're emotional beings, right? We're energy and motion. So if we stymie or stuff our emotions, they say, you know, these wounds actually fester inside, but they're emotional wounds. They're not physical wounds, and they then play out in our neurology, and that will manifest, of course, into a physical illness.
I think that's what used to piss me off about Dr. Phil and his "you got to rise above your raising" BS, because my mom used to parrot that back to us. You know, and when you got a bunch of early childhood trauma like I did, it's not that easy to just rise above your raising, you know. There's an actual physiological, chemical reasons that were keeping me stuck and keeping me in fight or flight, keeping me sick. Like it's not.
Well, one thing I have one of my favorite sayings, and I write about it in my books, is you get what you rehearse in life, not what you intend. So if I say something to you, that doesn't mean anything. We've got to create the pictures, the movements, the sounds. That's why, you know, there's very few people that are auditory only. You know, like you give them a message auditorily and they follow through with it. Most people need to see somebody doing an activity, explain it to them. You know, there's a lot more that goes into it. And as kids, you know, it's easy to say, you know, just rise above it. But and that's my field, right? Psychology, which is terrible. There's never been a study in psychology better than 12% that I've been able to find. So if somebody's listening to this, they can find me a study that actually shows somebody using psychological counseling 6 months to a year later is actually recovered. I will give you $1,000. Just send it to me. I have never in the history of my whole life and 40 years of doing this as a business ever come across a study. What they do is they say, I'm coping better, I'm sleeping better, but is there any real resolution? There's no resolution, because if you talk about something, if you and I talk about your childhood, it's called exacerbation. We actually, sounds a little bit like masturbation, but it's exacerbation. And so what happens is the brain starts running the program over and over again, and those neurons literally hardwire together. So you are the sum total of the neurological networks you run during the day. That's why if you woke up, they say woke up on the right side of the bed or the wrong side of the bed, there's only one side of the bed that I always wake up on, you know, but the thing is that with that morning, we'll set our neurological markers and we'll run our day. That's why I believe the morning, we've got to break up the morning. We got to really start the morning strong, doing something maybe like BrainTap or some meditation, some breath work, some exercise, something to get our physiology on board with today being a great day, not just another day. You know, some people drive around with that bumper sticker, SSDD, I think, same stuff, different day or something.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's not the same stuff.
Right.
It's always, if we can look at life as it's always different, it's better. We're going to create something called neuroplasticity. And that's what's key to healing those wounds. If we don't, what happens with neuroplasticity is we create something called neuropruning. So neuropruning happens naturally, but what happens unfortunately around trauma is it prunes all of the other options to support the one belief you hold about that experience. So it actually eliminates all the possible reframes, all the possible healing antidotes, because if you're holding on to that, wanting to get even with that person, which you're probably never going to be able to do. So that's why forgiveness and gratitude and these emotional states of love and things like that, that some people, I mean, I would say most people have to kind of fake it until they actually begin to experience those. Because in my house growing up, until my dad got help, I thought love was a 4-letter word, but it wasn't LOVE.
Oh, no, yeah. I didn't get the blueprint either. Like, yeah, when you don't get the blueprint growing up, it's, you know, people will say something and you look at them like, I'm sorry, can you use that word in a sentence? Like, it doesn't compute.
I mean, we were so bad growing up that when we saw families hugging in church, we thought there's something wrong with them. You know, why are they hugging each other? What's happening? You know, because that just didn't happen at our house. You know, we were good Irish Catholics. You know, we didn't have that kind of stuff. We had to tough it up. You know, men don't cry and stuff like that.
Yeah. So then explain us in the time that we have left, how does the BrainTap work?
Well, every cell of your body has something called a mirror neuron. So think of it like everything that's happening outside of you is going to be mirrored as a physical vibration inside of you. So whether that be peace, anger, fear, resentment, even colors, everything in the universe is teeming with energy and vibration, even you. And so you're vibrating with it. That's why when you find your vibe, or you find somebody, you say, I vibe with that person, or you make a connection. Those are all things that happen. So our brain and body is doing this all the time. The science is actually called frequency following response. So what I've done over the years, and I didn't invent any of these technologies, so I can't take the credit for that. What I did was I decided to put these 5 technologies in one place in a headset. So the first was light therapy. Now, every cell of your body absorbs light energy. We have something in the cell called a chromophore. This part of the body actually absorbs energy in the form of light, sound, and vibration. It does it all day long. So the listeners understand, I'll first talk about sound. When you go to a party and you don't really want to be there, but they start playing your favorite music, you'll start tapping your toes, swinging your hips, and pretty soon, you want to dance because the cells of your body fill up with energy from that sound. Vibration is just the room around you. Let's say there's mold in the room, that's going to bring your energy down, right? And Lyme is going to bring your energy down when it's inside your body. So, and then we have light. Now, good light, like what I was talking about earlier, anything from 470 nanometer light up to 850 nanometer light. These are the light zones that our body absorbs that light energy and uses it. Now, what happens, just so they understand the mechanism of action, they're listening, every cell has something called a mitochondria in it. When light energy is absorbed by the cell, which is the hemoglobin carries that light energy around the body until it finds the cell that's about to die. They call apoptosis. That energy is absorbed by the mitochondria. Once that happens, it spins up something called the Krebs cycle. When it spins it up, they've actually proven that this light energy will increase the ATP production, or the currency for healing, 32 times. So imagine now what we did is we put it in the eyes. So your eyes are closed, but you're going to do it through something called photobiomodulation. So the eyes are flashing at earth frequencies. So in the ears, they're flashing at Noget frequencies. In the session, they're focused, there's a sound in there that's at 10 hertz frequency, which is that alpha track that we're talking about. Plus, we have right frequencies in those tracks. So you're getting bombarded by all these different light, sound, and vibrational frequencies. And then that encoding is driving your brain to follow it. That's what the frequency following response happens. Now, there's 3 different times of the day that we've designed these sessions to train the brain. We call it brain fitness for a reason. We have study after study, and they can go to braintap.com and look at the research page. We have studies going on. I just approved a study in Bhopal, India today. But what we show is that when you're doing this, we can have sessions in the morning. We call it digital coffee, because if you don't wake up your brain right, there's a brainwave called SMR. It's between alpha and beta. Sensory motor rhythm has to do with your balance, your distributor system. It also has to do with your cognition. So people that have ADD, ADHD, dementia, Alzheimer's, this is the brainwave they're missing. So in the morning, we're designed to trigger that, because if we were in ancient times, we'd wake up and the light would hit us, the earth would get hot. We would then start to think about, are we dinner laying here? We need to get up and move. So our body would trigger norepinephrine, dopamine, and cortisol, and we would jump up and do it. Now, unfortunately, what most people do is they wake up to an alarm clock. The worst thing you can do for your electrical system. So I always say the first thing, change that alarm to a nice piece of music that wakes you up, because you're coming back to the reality you're going to be in for whatever 10 to 12 hours. You might as well wake up with a state of enjoyment instead of freaking yourself out with a loud noise and returning back from. And then in the afternoon, everyone on earth, everyone listening to this, wherever you're at around the world, at 2 a.m., your temperature increases 2 degrees. But at 2 p.m., the afternoon, your temperature drops 2 degrees. It does it for every person, every day, all around the world. Now, if your brain is dysregulated, what will happen is your temperature will drop more than 2 degrees. You'll have symptoms of low blood sugar, and you think you need coffee, tea, and chocolate. But the reality is you need a BrainTap session, or you need a meditation session, some kind of breathing process, something, or go for a walk. Your body needs to move. And so if it doesn't, so what we did is we showed in the one study we did with for the afternoon sessions only, we did a study with Googlers and Microsoft programmers. These were the top 1%. And we have the whole study, we published it. But the main thing that we showed them is by taking a 20-minute break in the middle of the day, they actually produced 23% more work. Their happiness score improved 54%. Their sleep score improved over 40%. their depression score improved 70%. Every one of these 1%ers were clinically depressed. But I'm not prone to, prescribe any medicines or anything like that. I wouldn't send them to somebody to do that. What we showed them was, once you get your energy, we live in an energy economy. If our energy's up, we treat ourselves right, we treat other people right. Now, that's the afternoon sessions. We train to theta or to gamma. Now, in the evening, we have sessions that put you to sleep. Because if your brain is dysregulated and you go to sleep, you can't reach delta fast enough. And we need 6 to 8 cycles of sleep to register that 1 hour of deep sleep. And during that 1 hour of deep sleep, we're going to cleanse our brain by opening up something called the glia lymphatic system, which they didn't even know about before 2015. So we have a new part of the body that nobody knew about. It only activates. So imagine we have these bodies they've been studying at least for a couple hundred years, cutting them open, looking at them. They could never find it because it only activated during level 4 sleep. And 2/3 of the world isn't sleeping. So they're never cleansing their brain. So that's the number one thing that BrainTap does, is help people sleep better and, get better results as far as we have to prepare to sleep. In ancient times, you and I, we'd be sitting around the fire talking about hunting and gathering or whatever we talk about during those times. And when the log burned out, and by the way, that fire is burning at 10 hertz frequency. So you're actually down regulating your nervous system just sitting by the fire.
On its red light.
In its red light. So you're getting everything we're biohacking about. They used to do in ancient times.
Yeah.
When that log went out, they didn't go, "Hey, Barry, go get us another log. We're going to binge watch this other log." No, they said, "The log's out. We're going to go to bed," right? So that's the key here, is what are we going to do next? And I think that the next for everyone is to just get back into these really ancient traditions, but using modern technology to do it.
Absolutely, 110%. I love the biohackers. I mean, they absolutely. And at the same time, I tell people all the time, this is not where we start, right? We start with the foundations first, and then we start dialing in stuff as we go from there. But yes, absolutely. And then, so you said people can find more info at braintap.com.
Yes. If they like what I've said, they can go to my YouTube channel, drpatrickporter.com, and I've got hundreds, if not thousands of videos there they can watch for free and learn more.
I know where I'm going next. I love this. Thank you so much. And I knew I would. Like, I've been chasing you for like a year now, and your gatekeepers are really, they do their job very well. but I'm glad I had an in with Dave's crowd. So I'm glad I finally got you here. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for everything that you're doing in this world, and for joining us today.
Well, appreciate you having me. And I'm on a mission to better 1 billion brains. So those of you listening, it's your brain now. So get on over there, try our 14-day free trial, and see if we can help you to get the results you want.
14 free day trial. Oh my gosh. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, go check that out. Make sure to stay tuned and have a healthy day. Thanks again. And as always, if you were inspired by anything that you heard on today's show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. That's the only way that we help change people's lives and get this information out into the world so that change can begin one person at a time, the way that it did with me and changed my life so many years ago. Make sure too, right, if you really want to start changing your life, it starts with your diet. It starts with what's on the end of your fork. And if you want to start making changes, go to my website, www.renegadehealthboss, RENEGADE, health, HEALTHBOSS.com, and download your free ebook, your free cooking guide, Real Cooking to Real Life. And in there, you'll also find links to the videos. Don't just learn what to eat, but why, right? Don't just learn how to cook, but the reasonings behind why I use some of the tools that I do, the toxins. You've got to lower your toxic burden, and we can do that in the kitchen and with what you eat. So make sure that you pick up that free resource. It's amazing. And while we're at it, we got to do a little disclaimer. Anything that you hear on this show is for entertainment value only. You cannot hold Heather Gray, the Lyme boss, Discovering Health LLC, or Renegade Health Boss liable for any damages that may have occurred while you have tried something that you've heard on the show. This show also contains affiliate sponsorship and paid advertising, just a heads up. But to also know that no advertising gets on here without my approval first. It's usually products that I have tried and have my stamp of approval on it. So never fear when it comes to that. But yes, cannot hold me liable. Do not, this is for educational purposes only. Please make sure that you talk to your doctor before making any medical changes. And God bless. Stay tuned.